What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with something a little bit different. This is the first ever mailbag edition of the Rick Run Good YouTube channel or the DFS On Demand podcast. As you can imagine, I get a lot of questions. Some end up being content for videos, for further deep dive. Some are just kind of like silly questions. Some are more serious. So what I've done is I've compiled a lot of the questions that I still have on my list to get to, and I've asked for any more questions, and I opened it up to. It can be DFS, it can be life, it can be business, it can be television, whatever you want to talk about. I opened it up to that. So I'm just going to run through some of these questions. If anything comes up that you'd like me to elaborate on, or you want to submit for the next mailbag edition, leave a comment below, or you can tweet me, or you can email me, and I'll continue to compile a list. This is going to be audio only, so if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to minimize this. I'm just going to go through these questions here that I have in random order, or the way that I've received them, and we'll see how many we get through, and that's the way we'll do it. So let's get first question. We'll see how long this takes and see how many we can get through here. What do you do for a living? Well, that is a timely question. As of 6 days ago, as of last week, this is my full-time job. So that's DFS On Demand, the subscription site for tools, mostly involving the PGA Tour as my new focus. And the YouTube channel, I'm focusing on this full time, which is going to allow me to create a lot more content. It's going to allow me to deep dive into some of the really cool things that I've always wanted to and haven't had time to do. In the past, my background, if that's what we're talking about, is in marketing automation. So that is using software to help, whether it's small businesses with automating their processes. I've worked a lot with some of the largest college athletics. I almost called them college athletics companies, college athletics departments in the country. All the big football schools and basketball schools are some of the ones that I've worked with to help automate their processes as well. So that's what my background is in. But now it is truly all DFS On Demand, all Rick Run Good, which I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. I think I'm going to be, or actually I know there's going to be expansion into a lot of cool things like maybe some sports betting, showdown slates. I think you'll see my face in more places, whether that's for content for other sites or just going on different shows and things like that. It's going to be an opportunity for me to really get out there and talk as much golf as possible. Why do you only play on Draftkings? I wouldn't say that I only play on Draftkings. My video content and my tools are focused primarily at Draftkings because they have currently what I think is the best setup for me, which is a nice interface. I just never could get around to FanDuel's interface. I don't like the way the site is set up. And GPPs that you can win a lot of money in. And that's currently what I'm looking for. It is not to say that if another site didn't do something comparable or better, I wouldn't try that. I'm a big believer in the innovation in the industry. I encourage the innovation in a big way. So when Yahoo goes out and has rake-free weeks, I deposit and go play on Yahoo because I want to put my money where my mouth is. If I think that rake is too high in the industry and I ignore Yahoo when they do rake-free weeks, I'm a joke. I'm a lie. So I mean, DraftKings is currently the best situation for me. I've played a little bit on Fantasy Draft. Fantasy Draft had a pretty cool, it might have been a couple of years ago at this point, like a live final where there was only 4 people and they had a really cool qualifying path to it. I don't know if they still do things like that. I know that they do rake-free heads-ups. If I was a heads-up player, I'd go over there, which I think is, again, really innovative. I also think they're going to do something subscription-based instead of rake. They're going to have like a subscription format, which I also think is great. I think innovation is awesome. I think I'll try it out. And then there's sites like Thrive Fantasy, which is more in the prop bet world, that I don't love the way the site is currently set up now, but I know they just released PGA, and I think that prop bets is where the industry is kind of going. So Draftkings is just where I play most of my action, because that's kind of what exists for what I'm looking for, but I'm certainly not against other. I'm not super loyal to DraftKings that I wouldn't play other places, and I really just encourage innovation. There was another question here about like other fantasy formats. I also, I'm a really big believer in like pools and different types of contests. So like I'd love to see season long contests that might be broken down with fantasy scoring, right? So you could put in imagine you're a 10 team league where you submit a lineup every week and you play against someone else. And if you win, you get one win, and you do that for, 30 weeks or 35 weeks. And then you go to the playoffs. I think there needs to be more innovation around fantasy formats in general. I also wouldn't mind playing like a straight best ball, like let's get 10 of us together or whatever. We'll all draft 10 golfers. And then over the course of the season, every week you get, you keep your 4 highest scores and we go by money or something like that, or DraftKings points. Like I think there's a lot of ways that we can engage each other outside of just paying the full rake on the DFS sites and trying to hit. You really need to hit like the nut lineup to reap a lot of these rewards. I prefer the season long formats if there was a good way to do it. What is the art on your walls? Okay, so a couple things. So if you look in the videos, the ones that you probably see are they're Ryan Simpson. I will post his link in the description. Love his style. He does a lot of sports stuff. I think I've got Iverson, Russell Westbrook, Ben Simmons, Roberto Clemente. I have Joel Embiid. I don't know if you've seen other areas of other walls in here. There is one wall that is all Seinfeld art. So just some local art shows that have been here in LA. I've gone and purchased some Seinfeld art when it became available. So that's on one wall. Ryan Simpson is on another, and then depending on how far you can see on the Joel Embiid wall, there's another piece there from Michael Wu, who does. It's NBA Aliens, which is actually pretty cool. He draws NBA players almost as if they're aliens. It's kind of cartoony, but that's a style that I like. So that's currently what is up on the walls. And always looking for more. I actually also have like a bunch of other stuff that has not made it up to the walls yet. It's just like sits around and I don't know what to do with it. All right, course. This just says course history or recent form. I guess what is better? What do I prefer? Obviously, the answer is it's some combination of both. But I don't think that guys who are playing poorly show up to a place that they may have won 3 years ago or finished second 5 years ago, and all of a sudden their game turns around. I still think there is a level of you have to make contact with the ball consistently over and over and over again. Maybe you get a little bit of an advantage if you're familiar with the course, you know where to miss, you know how the greens roll. But I still think that recent form kind of trumps all. If I really had to choose one, it would be recent form compared to course history. Obviously, we're looking for some combination of both. Golfer that you never play. Ooh. So the one thing I do see a lot is like, oh, this guy burned me, I'm never going to play him again, which I absolutely hate. I hate reading that. It's honestly one of the most annoying things I get. Because it's just stupid. Like, why? Why would you never play him again? You thought he was a good play this week to play him. He missed the cut or he withdrew. Who cares? Like when Jason Day withdraws and everyone's like, I'm never playing Jason Day again. Okay. Like you're not going to play one of the best players on the planet. I will never understand that. So I don't have a golfer that I never play because I don't like them. There's guys that I don't play because like their game doesn't really work for me. Honestly, I don't play Tiger a lot. I don't play Tiger a lot because the salaries always come from Vegas odds. and the Vegas odds on Tiger are always inflated compared to what his true odds are, which means his salary is always inflated and his ownership is always inflated. And that's a really bad combination for a golfer that I would want to roster. Ricky Fowler tends to be the same. He's just always more popular than he should be, which I do not, I don't like. Right. So it's not that I have anything against those guys. I actually really enjoy them. Ricky Fowler might be my favorite golfer. I don't have like a lot of favorite golfers, but Ricky Fowler's probably up there, but I just never play him in DFS, or rarely do, because of the situation of his ownership. So things like that. There's not someone that I write off just because there's a reason for it. It's just I tend to not get to some of these guys based on what the rest of the industry does. What is your handicap? I'm assuming this means golf handicap. I mean, I have a lot of handicaps, but golf handicap, I am currently, I want to say a 7.8. Good days, I can break 80. I'm mostly in the low 80s, 82, 83. If I shoot anything in 87, 88, I'm a little disappointed with that. I cannot hit the driver to save my life. I use a mini driver because I just can't hit a driver, and I hit a mini driver better. I hit my irons okay. I think I have a very steep angle of attack, so my irons tend to play pretty well there. I putt okay. I'm pretty poor 100 yards and in. Obviously, like, to take my game from 7-8 to, what I would want to be, I really have to improve that 100 yards and in, which I'm aware of, and I've been kind of doing a lot more practice on it. But I need to putt better. I need to chip better. But I can hit the ball a little bit around. And I play like once or twice a week. Now that I'm self-employed, I will probably be playing more, so maybe that'll help my handicap. Do you have a lineup optimizer? So kind of a loaded question depending on how we look at it. Okay, so just in general, let me go back here. I don't use a lineup optimizer to set lineups. As you guys have probably seen, I use the core cascading method because I've never loved how optimizers will create lineups because they're so... I don't know how to say this. They're so handcuffed to fantasy points. Like, I understand that's how they have to optimize it, is based on projections. Like, optimizers are all the same. It only depends on what you're putting into it, if your projections are good or if your ownership projections are good. I also don't necessarily like the way that lineups are made. For example, and I know some lineup optimizers have probably addressed this by now, but like if I have Tiger Woods in 50% of my lineups, I don't necessarily want it to optimize 50 lineups with Tiger first and then remove him and then do another 100 without him. I want him to just kind of be weaved in and out of those lineups so that he gets with different other core players. So I've never really loved the way optimizers work for me. So I've never had one on the site because of that. And just so you guys are aware, like, everything on the site is things that I use. I only create things that I use. And I haven't had an optimizer because I haven't felt right offering something and charging people for something that I don't use myself. I thought it was a little disingenuous. So I've nenever had one. And I get asked about it all the time. So that is something that I don't know. Well, actually, I do have access to an optimizer, but it's a custom optimizer. It's one my friend built me, which I'm super thankful for. I love it. It's bare bones, which I love. That's what I love about it, but it's super flexible. So I don't know, like, this is how I get to my optimal lineups. If you see me tweet out those optimals after each round, usually I try to do it. I use that optimizer that my buddy built me. And I like it because what it allows me to do is it allows me to optimize on any stat that I want. So I don't have to do just fantasy points. I can optimize on strokes gained approach. So give me the 6 golfers who have the highest cumulative strokes gained approach for under 50,000, or strokes gained off the tee, or whatever metric that I think is important that week. I could do weight. I could do players' weight. Give me the largest sum, the fattest 6 guys under 50,000. I could get that, which is why I love this tool, because it is flexible. It's not like some of the other optimizers that I've seen out there. There might be an opportunity to offer that on the site at some point. I don't know. It's not super high on my list, but I do get asked about it enough that I think it's interesting. All right, what else? Where'd you get your Arya shirt? Actually wearing it right now. So this is it's from RotoWear. I don't know those guys. From what I can tell, actually I think it's just one guy. He does a really cool job on designs. There's a lot of really creative stuff on there. A lot of it is not necessarily my cup of tea. It's might be heavy football related, or there's like baseball inside jokes that I don't necessarily get or I would wear. But when I saw this Arya Stark, kind of Game of Thrones, Michael Jordan crossover, that was for me. So from what I can tell, they do a great job. It's a great shirt. It's the only one I own from them, so I don't know much more about it. Favorite, okay, this is good. Favorite Seinfeld character who only appeared in one episode. That's actually really tough. Because like if we're talking about guys who appeared in like just a handful of episodes, that could be interesting. But one episode, probably Jean Paul. So when he's there for the marathon, I just love the whole back and forth with him and Jerry when Jerry's trying to find out why he overslept. And it's, why separate knob? It's so good. I mean, there's so many great dynamics there. Elaine, is kind of the foil and nobody trusts her. It's such a good episode, and he plays the character well. I think he's definitely only in one episode. So a lot of other characters that only show up a handful of times, but for one and only episode, it's got to be Jean Paul. How do you resist the urge to play your 20 max core cascading lineups in 150 max tournaments? I don't. No, I do. I've got pretty good willpower. I'm really just a huge believer that if you are not max entering a contest, you shouldn't be entering it. Now, do I always follow that rule? Of course not. But I am truly aware and very adamant that if I'm entering a tournament, I'm going to max enter it. That means, that's why I've probably max entered the Millie Maker when I shouldn't have. Because I'm not going to put this DFS in general is already hard enough. DFS golf is already hard enough. You don't need to hand yourself more disadvantages by not max entering contests. And that doesn't mean go and blow all of your money playing fantasy sports. You should definitely not do that. But what it means is like we live in a world now where the single entry contests are good, man. Like the single entry contests on DK have good returns. That was not always the case. It used to be like, oh, okay, this is like the $12 and like $500 for first. And if this is the nut lineup, I missed out on 100,000. Like that's not really the case anymore. The single entry stuff is good. So how do I resist? Well, let me finish this thought. It's, even if you are making, let's assume everyone makes the same, expected value lineups, right? Everyone makes lineups that have the same EV. No lineup is better than another lineup. If I have 20 lineups and you have 150, you are already at a significant advantage on me. Now, if I'm entering 150 lineups, if I'm entering 20 lineups and you're entering 150 and you're better than me, I'm now even further behind. So I was already behind because I wasn't making good enough lineups, and now I'm even further behind because I'm making fewer not good enough lineups, and you're making a lot more better lineups. So once you kind of come to grips with that you don't need to create more of a disadvantage for yourself, I encourage you to just max enter everything. Now, what I usually do is I'll max enter all the 20 maxes, right, that I want to play, and I'll play the single entries. And I keep a really, really tight core. I probably only play a handful of lineups every single week. But then I kind of expand them out with the core cascading method. So I will at least throw my core in the $5, like $100,000 tournament or whatever else. That way, if I do hit the nut lineup, I am not missing out on like the $100,000. with that one lineup. If I miss out on it on my 19th lineup, oh well, but then at least I won the 20 max and I probably won 10, 20K, whatever it was for that week. So highly encourage you just to come to grips with what it actually means to put in less entries than the max allows you to. Oh boy, this is a good one. And I don't know if I have enough time in the world to talk about it. What is your take on putting? How much is luck and how much is skill? How predictable is it and how much should we weigh it? Whew. Yeah, this might be like a podcast and a deep dive of its own with some data. But in general, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but in general, what we have seen is putting is by far the most volatile stat of the major stat categories. And when I say major stat categories, I'm referring to strokes gained off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. They are very, very noisy. A golfer can gain 3 strokes in one round and lose 6 strokes the next. I mean, the range of outcomes is just massive. It is not as big of a difference off the tee, for example. Off the tee is actually probably one of the more stable of the strokes gained numbers. Because think about it, you never have a bad lie. Right? You're setting up, you're putting your ball on the tee how you want it to, the angle that you want. Around the green, you can get some really funky lies. It's just off the tee is much more in a player's control. So those who are good at it tend to stay really good at it. And that's not to say, and what I'm referencing is this is all a short-term conversation. Long-term, the best putters rise to the top. I mean, Ricky Fowler, always one of the best putters, but if you go back and look, like he's going to gain 2 strokes one round and lose it the next. Okay. It just is a stat that flips all the time. When you go look at off the tee, Rory, I think, or Rory and Rahm, I forget which one, they had to stretch like 27 straight rounds that they gained off the tee. They did not lose strokes in any round off the tee for like 27 straight rounds. Like that's never going to happen in putting. So, and I know this argument's been made a little bit more recently as well, where it's like the worst putter can get hot and for 1 or 4 rounds kind of make everything and win a golf tournament. The worst off the tee guy or the worst tee to green guy is rarely going to become the best tee to green guy or the best off the tee guy. DJ is just so good off the tee. It would be very, very rare for him to have a tournament where he ranks like 150th off the tee. And it would be almost impossible for someone like, Wes Bryant's always the example here. Wes Bryant, who only hits the ball, 290 if he's lucky, probably like 280. For him to be the number 1 off the tee player, it's not going to happen. So the volatility in putting does happen all the time. Those guys finish first, last, 50th, 20th, 22nd, like all over the place. So how predictable is it? I would say short term, it's like basically not predictable at all. Short term, single rounds, maybe even I guess in a tournament you could kind of predict it. Long term vary. Still like Jason Day is always going to be a good putter. Ricky Fowler is always going to be a good putter. If you look at like rolling 50 round averages, those guys are always going to be good putters. How much do we weigh it? I quite honestly have started to almost be team no putting. It just, tee to green is so much more important. It's so much more predictable. And then if a guy if a bad putter happens to just putt neutral or God forbid gain strokes in a week, they can win it. So I don't have the data in front of me. This is certainly something, I know it is a hot button topic. We'll do a deeper dive in. I'll provide some data to back it up, but I'm just personally at the moment kind of on team no putting. I really don't care if you can't putt. Okay. How do you like the Oculus? So I assume, and maybe it's because you saw it in the video, I might have tweeted about it. The Oculus Quest, for those of you who don't know, is a new VR headset from Oculus, and it is freaking awesome. I'm in virtual reality probably a little bit every day. I'm a big big believer in virtual reality. I really like it. I got introduced to it. The wife and I went, and we're big escape room people. We love escape rooms. Love the puzzles. And we did a virtual reality escape room, which was kind of sick. So you had to escape this room, solve the puzzles, do all this whatever stuff, and you were in virtual reality. And that kind of got us hooked. And we went back and we did more. And we were like, yo, we gotta get some VR in our life. And when we saw Oculus was coming out with the Quest, it's probably been out a month or so by now. We were like, okay, we got to get that. So we went out and bought it, and it has not disappointed. What they've been able to accomplish. So for those of you who are not aware, everything is contained within the headset. There's no wires. You're not hooked up to a gaming computer like other versions you had to be. So you not only had to have this expensive headset, but you also had to have, an expensive gaming computer. Some VR headsets, you had to put up cameras like around your house so that you could boundary off the areas that you could walk in. None of that is necessary with the Quest. Everything is contained within the headset. It is super awesome. It's getting better every day as more apps and more games come out. And I probably use it every day. There's nothing wrong with it. I love it. What are you watching on TV right now? Oof, good question. So I don't usually watch a ton of new stuff. Sports are always on. Obviously, now this is the worst time of year for sports. So watch a ton of golf, obviously. We just started, the wife and I just restarted Homeland. So I've probably seen all but maybe the last season of Homeland. I won't spoil anything, but I'm pretty much a firm believer that like the first season of Homeland and maybe the first 2 seasons are some of the best television out there. If I remember correctly, seasons like 3 and 4 are pretty crappy. Like they reboot the storyline a couple times. I don't remember what seasons that is, but I'm really enjoying rewatching it because season 1's still awesome. There's a lot of stuff I don't really even remember. So that's been cool. We're now like in the middle of season 2. So we're coming up on probably the end of how really, really good it is. And then Designated Survivor, I watched when it was on ABC, and I saw it just dropped more episodes on Netflix. So I'll probably go check that out. I was kind of into that. I'm interested to see what Netflix does with it. Other than that, Seinfeld's kind of always on somewhere. The Office is always on somewhere. So those are the things that I'm really rolling through at the moment. Do you read books? This is probably a good one to end on. I think we're coming up on about a half hour here. Do I read them? No. Do I listen to them? Yes. So along with podcasts, I consume Audible a lot, so audiobooks. And the things that I enjoy and that I can recommend are, I don't want to call them self-help. They're like kind of like business motivational type books. So honestly, I read The Company of One, it's called Company of One. It's by Paul Jarvis. It probably was the main reason I quit my job, quite honestly. It just really spoke to me, about kind of being a business of your own and why you don't have to grow in the way that everyone wants you to grow. So for example, you don't have to take on venture capitalist money and grow to 100 employees because that's what society thinks you should do. Because with that growth comes less freedom. You have to manage people. You just have to deal with a lot more BS. Being a company of one where you're either a freelancer, a consultant, someone like me who does, I don't even know what to describe myself as, a YouTuber or whatever, you can grow within that and not have to, you can still have your own freedoms, right? Like I can make more money just by myself with different ways, or I can, not make as much money if I don't want to, if I want to continue down the path of just keeping my freedom and working from home and stuff like that. So that was really valuable to me. I've read some pretty crappy ones, so we're listening to some crappy ones. There was, I think it's called Morning Miracle, which I thought was going to be like a really good plan to, I don't know, get motivated every day. I thought it laid an egg. It was fine. A lot of people do it. I didn't think it worked for me. It was mostly just wake up early, which I already do. So I didn't get much out of that. Currently on Digital Minimalism, which I don't know who the author is, but again, trying to determine how much screen time is really necessary in my life. And if it brings me enough value, then maybe it's worth it for me. And if it doesn't bring me value, can I cut it out? And those are the types of books that I read. I do have some sitting there in Audible that I want to get to. I like the business stuff. I like politics. I obviously read sports. I have The Logic of Sports Betting on my shelf. That's a hard copy I have to read. So there's some stuff out there, but always looking for recommendations. So if anybody's got any in those genres, shoot them over. So that's probably a good place to start. We're about a half hour right on the dot here. So we'll wrap it up. I hope that was at least interesting. I was able to cover a lot of the questions that I've got that I've been wanting to chat through, and hopefully this leads to some more stuff. If there are additional, whether it's follow-up conversations you love to have, listen, I'm working from home, right? Like I'm not out there talking to people. Happy to conversate with everybody. Let's go back and forth on it. Email me. You can email me through the site, tweet me at DFS On Demand. You can leave a comment on YouTube if you're there. And then if there's more questions, we'll do it. We'll do it in the mailbag next time. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. See ya.